I have so many cases. The Mandal Commission, where students are burning themselves, setting themselves on fire because of the reservation policy for backward classes. Now, as a result of which, one felt tragic that so far as these students are concerned, they were throwing away their lives. And what would be the fate of the parents? Therefore, I moved a stay petition for them in the Mandal case. Indira Sani. And Indira Sani case, they granted a stay of the office memorandum, which is a Mandal report, which was issued as a memorandum. And the result of that was that all this self-immolation stopped. That was one of the great things which I thought I had achieved in stopping suicides.
Well, I think my most memorable case was what was known as the Jain Hawala case, which went on for several years. And then the court laid down guidelines for giving independence and status to the CBI. It is known as the Jain Hawala case. It's the case reported at Vineet Narayan versus the Union of India, 1998, Volume 1, SCC, page 226. But apart from the final judgment, there are many interlocutory orders which were of great significance as far as the case developed from day to day, from year to year. So I think that case is the case which I remember most and is worth recalling, and it has had an impact on our public interest litigation so far as corruption, so far as integrity, so far as probity in public life is concerned.
I think apart from the high profile cases, the cases that are very often memorable are the cases of the poor people which come up, which fall on your lap, and where you have occasion to help them. I remember two instances of helping a student from an oppressed community who was denied a legitimate seat in an engineering college, to have fought for that and obtained her that admission. And the second case is of a poor woodcutter who sells wood for the funeral of people. That I told the judge that, look, for this man to live, somebody has to die. He had an eviction problem. The law was against him. There was a Supreme Court judgment which, so I argued that this requires reconsideration. And the judges agreed, they reconsidered it and protected his tenancy. Now I say this not for effect, I say that it's not the high profile cases of politicians or big commercial disputes or sensational murder cases which you handle, from where you may get your share of exposure and publicity. But the satisfaction ultimately rests in these kind of cases.
Well, in my career, there are two cases which I think were of great importance. One was the Parliament attack case, and the other was the 26/11, 2008, the Bombay blast case. In my view, both of them were perhaps my best performances as a lawyer. One, because it involved a great deal of law. That was the Parliament attack case. And that case was argued for almost 6 months. It involved enormous amount of evidence, judgments, analysis, written submissions, and I was pitted against Mr. Shantibhushan and Mr. Ram Jethmalani, two of the finest lawyers. And actually I realized that Mr. Shantibhushan is not only a great constitutional lawyer, but is a very good and a great criminal lawyer. Of course, Mr. Ram Jethmalani was at his best in this matter. It was a great challenge for me. Great. The second one was the 26/11/2008, where the presentation of facts was very important, where the understanding of the constitutional principles underlying fair trial was equally important, and that also I think was a very important case.
You know, in a career one does, as you rightly said, many cases and many interesting and remarkable cases over a period of time. But let me tell you about a small incident which is not a famous case, but a case which did leave an impression. It wasn't for a big corporate or someone famous, but was the case of the bail of an individual who had been twice denied bail, and I thought very unfairly, now kept behind bars for a long time. And this I'm talking about now about 12, 13 years ago, when I'd just been, or 14 years ago I was designated as senior, and maybe just after that this matter came. And ultimately, after a 2.5 hour argument in the Delhi High Court, this man got his bail, a man who had been behind bars for about 2 years. And when I came out, his sister just put her head on my shoulder and his wife held on to my hand, and they both wept and thanked me. And I think that has been, it was a very touching and moving, but it was also more rewarding and satisfying than getting relief for any big corporate or any famous individual. So wherever you end up getting someone his due, especially in cases like these where life and liberty is at stake, are very, very rewarding. And that's why I gave you this example, that there may be very famous cases one would have done, there may be famous clients one would have appeared for, but it's cases like these which really leave an impression on your mind and always are in your memory.